All right, happy Friday, everybody. It's June 25th, 2021, and we're going to do our pre-market analysis here on the S&P 500 futures market. So let's jump over to our high time frames here and jump to the ultra high time frames to just take a look and see if anything looks different here. Our quarterly has the same story that it has had for a few days now after that recovery from the Friday sell-off. Same thing on the monthly, nothing new to be said over there. And now the weekly, remember what I said, if we could get above 58 quarter, which we have, we now have this big bullish engulfing candle, which is a pretty bullish indication. But I'm also looking at the RVI, and despite pushing a little bit higher here, the RVI is actually still sloping down a little bit lower. So a pretty bullish candlestick with somewhat of a bearish indication. Now we do have the rest of today for this to actually form. So this could potentially, rather than closing here at say 72 on RVI, this could actually either slope up just a little bit or something like that. That would negate the potential bearish indication. But there is somewhat of a bearish indication right now if you just look purely at the indication that you have on RVI. So we'll have to kind of watch this. At the end of the day, I'll take a look and see if this story has changed at all. Otherwise, we might have some discrepancy here from what we're seeing on those two different perspectives. But overall, we still did have that bearish indication from the week before, which seems to have already played out. So we pulled back that week. So when we closed, we were down at 54. We only really got about a 15 to 20 point pullback from there. And then it was, a rally out of there. And it looks like right now we're pushing to make new all-time highs. So ideally, this RVI will somehow shift by the end of today and push higher. That's what I would like to see here. We get to our daily and everything looks pretty strong right now. You can see that we've been consistently making higher highs each day, and so has the RVI. Now, off of the candle that closed yesterday, there is somewhat of an argument here of some bearishness. So kind of like on the weekly as well, some type of an argument for bearishness going against what we're actually kind of seeing and feeling right now, which is some strength in the market. So on the daily, if you look at the previous swing high where we actually have a defined peak on RVI here, when this candle closed last night, we were just a few points higher compared to that candle. But the RVI, if you go to where we closed, was actually down here. So the argument can be made that we had a bearish indication off that high. So like I said, kind of like the weekly, we have these bearish indications up here, but things are still continuing to push. And as of right now, with this new candle here, if this candle does close and this RVI signal closes right there at 64, then we would probably not have the same bearish indication, but we do have all day for this to form, so we're going to have to kind of monitor this. So we do have somewhat of a bearish argument to be made off of the previous daily high, but it's not, again, just like I tell you guys, as far as the type of analysis I do with RVI, I'd like to actually see a defined peak to compare peak to peak, unless we're doing a subsequent candle. For what it's worth, there definitely is somewhat of an argument there, just not as pretty as I would like to see. We get to the 4 hour here, and when I was looking at the charts just a little bit earlier, we did have what looked to be somewhat of a bullish indication off that low, but things actually have changed. And again, this is because this candle has been, has until 7 a.m. Pacific to actually close and for this signal to officially close. And so there was somewhat of an indication there, but it has changed. So that is no longer there. We do have a huge wick here on this previous candle, which is somewhat of a bullish indication there. And we do have kind of the flip side now, where there is somewhat of an argument for some bearishness unless the picture changes in the next 45 minutes. So that's something to kind of watch here as we go this morning. Could potentially see some type of bearish indication on this 4-hour up here, but we could also see this push up just a little higher on RVI, kind of like, if I could maybe draw this, maybe it could come up like that, and that would be better because we would no longer have that exhaustion pattern showing up. Outside of that, we did have that bullish indication off of the previous daily low on the 4-hour, and I don't see other indications, at least from a divergence perspective right now. So just to go back here, ultra high time frames all still look pretty strong. The weekly does have some indications of bearishness. The daily actually does have somewhat of an indication of bearishness off the previous candle, and the most recent candle that has all day to develop actually might negate that indication. And then the 4-hour, somewhat of an indication of bearishness, but we have to keep in mind that there's still 45 minutes for this to develop, so the whole picture could change. So let's go to our 60-minute here and take a look. We did have a little bit of a bullish indication and that led to a push here from 57 to 65. And let's see, so we did have a pretty clear bearish divergence over here, and then we came down, and right now, kind of like what we're seeing on the 4-hour and the daily, is somewhat of a bearish case now off of that overnight high. So that high was 65.50, and this seems kind of familiar. We seem to keep having these instances where we have some pretty decent bearish indications off of the overnight high, and remember, for the whole week, a number of times that was basically our line in the sand for the bulls. If they could get through the overnight high, then we were going to have more of a bullish bias. It looks like that might be the situation this morning as well. So, I hate when I do that. We've got that arrow down there and some bearishness off the overnight high, at least for right now. If this candle continues to push higher and RVI continues to push and it breaks that 63 level, then we could potentially negate that signal. But right now we do have maybe not the best setups, but some arguments to be made for bearishness off of the overnight high for right now. Let's jump down to the intermediate time frames. And remember, this is just setting up conditions for our trades. I did point out to everyone before we started the broadcast here that the market, after that huge sell-off down to 26 or 27 back on June 20th, June 21st, we've recovered and have been just pushing to new highs. Then we started pushing and getting new all-time highs. So right now, it's obvious the picture right here is things are looking pretty strong. So what we're doing with that argument that we made off the overnight high is we're setting a condition up. If we can't get through the overnight high, which could be a possibility, they could come up and have some trouble and then start to turn from there. That would give us an indication to try that short to see if we get a larger pullback here. But overall, everything looks really strong. So we just really need to get through that overnight high, and then we can switch back to that bullish bias, because any of those bearish indications will have been negated. So let's go to the 30-minute here and take a look. 30-minute as well. You can see it really clearly here. A very bearish indication off of the overnight high, which is our new all-time high. Now again, these are all counter to what's going on in the market. It's pretty clear that there's a lot of strength, at least for the last week or two, or the last week since Monday's recovery. Things just look very, very strong. But I do want to keep in mind that since a lot of time frames are showing some indications, that we need to keep it in mind. So the conditions here this morning, on the 30-minute, we also have a bearish condition off of the previous candle that closed, and this new candle has another 12 minutes before that officially closes and that signal closes. So again, that could change on the new bar, but right now I think it's pretty clear that we do have a 60-minute, a 4-hour, even arguably a daily bearish indication, and then we get some agreement here on the 30-minute as well. So let's go to our 10-minute, see if there's any other agreement over in that area. Now we did get a number of bullish indications off of this little pullback here to 57 in the pre-market, and it did lead to a push from 57 to that new overnight high, new all-time high at 65.50. So just almost 10 points from that indication, and that was a 10-minute, a 30-minute, I think even a 60-minute indication of some bullishness from there. So that's how much it's followed through right now. But we did get that bearish indication, or I'm sorry, off of that bar itself, off of the overnight high, there really is no good argument for a bearish signal. But right now, you can see that even on the bar that closed at 6:10 Pacific, so just about 10 minutes ago, there was a bearish argument right there. And if this new candle does not break the overnight high, then we'll have another bearish indication up here right off that candle there. So 65.50 will be important to break here so that we can get through all of those bearish signals. So let me just go ahead and mark 65.50, maybe even give it a darker red color so we understand that's something we want to stay below in order for all of the bearish signals to really hold here. So do that. That's going to be important to break through this morning in order for our bullish overall bullish bias here to continue. So that's kind of where it leaves us this morning. Outside of all the bearish indications that we're getting off the all-time high and overnight high here, we did have, like I said, a lot of time frames giving some bullish indications here off of 42.57. So if I could just bring up my intermediate time frames really quickly here, or my high time frame here, the 60-minute had a bullish indication there. So it wasn't on the 4-hour, but the 60-minute and then the 30-minute and the 10-minute all showed some bullishness there. And like I said, we did get almost a 10-point push out of that level. But that could be all that we get. That 10-minute candle did officially close just now, and we do have the bearish indication there. So pretty much every single time frame gave us a bearish indication right there. Like I said, it does not have to hold. The overall picture is that we get probably some bearish indications every morning, and then once it broke the high, we then had more of a bullish case, and that's what we have today as well.